after former DARPA director Regina Dugan left Google.
Started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have
here.
a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication.
Facebook hired her to run its secretive Building 8 project, which she announced earlier this year will enable us to connect to the social media platform using only our brain waves, in something she called Silent Voice First.
What if you could type directly from your brain? It sounds impossible, but it's closer than you may realize. And it's just the kind of fluid human-computer interface needed for AR. We are not talking about decoding your random thoughts. We're talking about decoding those words, the ones you've already decided to share, by sending them to the speech center of your brain. A silent speech interface.
Something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Artificial intelligence is software that writes itself. It writes independently, autonomously. It develops its own way of thinking. We normally tend to think of software as stuff that we created and that we wrote, and the machines do what we tell them to do and we own it. This is not any longer true. Robots in the air and robots on the ground and robots in the water or underwater, where there are also drones, is made by, or can be made by, machines. And in my book I quote many official United States government documents which say our goal is to have the kill decision made by them. The problem is artificial intelligence, sometimes they make mistakes.
AI is beginning to run things to the point that governments can't even explain how the decisions are actually being made. And because the machines themselves are actually learning, they're not even able to trace them back to the algorithms that brought the AI to the decision itself.
And no one understands exactly how these algorithms function. They used to understand them, but they've been improved by artificial intelligence.
Google's DeepMind AI recently beat the most advanced human player on the planet in the game Go. And they were commenting about the fact that the programmers didn't even know how, towards the end of the game, the AI was making its decisions. They didn't know. And they're the programmers. And both Microsoft and Facebook have been forced to shut down AI programs. The first after it became racist and hateful, and the latter after it began teaching itself a secret language to talk to itself that its programmers couldn't even understand.
You probably think facial recognition is from the front, but they've redone it to do it from the top because that's where the drones are. And they look at your ears, they look at the way you walk, they look at your head.
Is being automatically tracked. The color boxes represent that the computer has recognized the moving objects. You can see individuals crossing the street, you can see individuals walking in parking lots.
Argus melds together video from each of its 368 chips to create a 1.8 billion pixel video stream.
And I'm telling you this because not that the sensors are modern and not that the photography is modern. Behind that is a brain or a cognitive intelligence. And that brain is in a position to analyze everybody down there at the same time, in real time. They see where everyone is going. It's taking all the details, all the amusing objects, and they record it so they can tell where that person was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, what stores he visited, what his whole behavioral patterns are. That's all part of the analysis.
Even Buddha stated, precisely, speak the beneficent truth. Meaning that telling someone the truth, with the intention of harming them, is also not good. Oops, just gave the cult of Judah hate speech a boost. For the Jews' argument is that it is not whether something you publicly uttered/published about a Jew or Jews was truthful or not, but whether you intended harm in uttering/publishing it. Which Brendan O'Connell has not addressed as the supposed expert of hate speech laws. There is no way around a law when it is open to being interpreted to assume that any criticism of Jews is motivated by an irrational hatred of all Jews, by anti-Semitism, and not by a desire to save us and the Jews from the cult of Judah. Not by a desire for justice. Not by a desire to prevent harm. Not by a desire to protect the innocent. not by the best of intentions, but by malicious intentions. Dear Brendan, there is no way around the cunningly crafted legislation. Until you deal with this aspect of the hate speech laws, they remain a minefield that any Jew can activate at will. And suddenly people who thought they were walking safely and confidently, suddenly find themselves triggering mines they had not realized were planted all around us. The problem is, how can you prove your motives were not malicious? How can you prove your motives were beneficent? Well-intended? Uttered in good faith and with good intentions. And while on the point of hate speech laws, we must revisit the whole idea of in public. For an utterance must be made in public for it to come under the authority of current hate speech laws. This could mean standing up at a public meeting and saying I don't believe the Holocaust propaganda, or publishing a video on YouTube, or posting the comment on any social media site. Or even speaking where you could be overheard by anyone. Even your own children, who could be taken away by community services and put in foster homes, for some casual remark they overheard you make in your own home. It may sound unreal to you, but the experts are stating that AI will soon be able to literally record pre-vocalized thoughts that you have merely expressed internally, in your own mind. They are presenting this breakthrough in the best light, as a means for people to communicate without even speaking. For example, I wouldn't need to type what I am now writing. I could just think it, verbalize it internally. Not actually having to say anything at all. Just carry out an internal dialogue with the software/hardware interface. Just think the words without actually saying them/speaking them aloud. Like when you read and hear the words in your head. Just the reverse of this. Hearing the words in your head, they will appear on your screen. Now, a very seriously respected authority on AI has stated publicly that the new boundary of privacy has just been pushed back and into your own head. The new public domain will start at the pre-vocalization level of your thoughts. I have the person on video and will edit that video, without misrepresenting the context. For the context was all about privacy. And the meaning of the term public and private in the brave new world of AI that is just a decade or so away. Given the rush to install the new 5G Internet of Things, the implication is that soon your thoughts will no longer be your private possession. There will be zero privacy for the masses. There will be 5G receivers and transmitters on every corner of every street of every town. Even remote towns. Freeways. Forests. These will register your movements literally step by step. So the new miniature attack drones with high explosives would be able to locate you, and face recognize you, within moments of any authorized party deciding you were an enemy of the state, and thus legitimate target for assassination. The potential dangers of 5G are totally researched. The man who once earned millions as a lobbyist for the telecommunications industry, is now the man responsible for regulating the telecommunications industry. Fox watching over the hens much. Does this surprise you? It won't surprise people who have been paying attention to the goings-on in Washington over the last few decades. This is in fact a typical situation for the occupied Jew.S.A, where revolving doors connect government and military with private corporations. In fact, around half of all congressmen and senators, and senior military officers, retire to take up posts with the corporations they did business with or regulated or outsourced contracts to, during their time in office as government employees. Those were the poor ones. The others were already rich shareholders in this scam called the Jew.S.A. The system, based on lobbyists and cult of Judah handlers making all the critical policy decisions, is totally corrupt. The few honest political representatives who somehow get elected against their cult of Judah pre-selected and groomed competition, and then attempt to blow the whistle on this state of affairs, are ignored, or worse, silenced. Either run out of office like Nixon, or simply murdered, like JFK. 5G may be, or used for, very dark and sinister purposes. Mood alteration. Putting people into altered states. Trance-like states. And even, as the experts in AI claim, mind reading, and mind control. I can't claim to know what is and what is not possible. The expert in the video I have posted is probably in a better position to know. But either way, would you risk it? Thinking illegal thoughts, and risking being charged with a thought crime, just for thinking politically incorrect thoughts? We are taking the Zoroastrian/Atenic principle of good thoughts, good words, good deeds to the limit. Currently what you do and say can be used to prosecute you and fine you and imprison you, and ruin your life. Soon what you think will be used in the same way. Isn't it time to reconsider how the laws, as they already stand, are being interpreted, and used, to control you? To censor you? To self-censor you? And punish you for thinking outside the box? For any sort of divergent/creative thinking or behavior? When will it be time to do this? Soon it will be too late to do anything. It will become a crime even to think of doing anything about this state of affairs. People keep wanting you to self-censor your criticism of invasion of privacy by shaming you into silence with, well, people who have nothing to hide, should have nothing to fear, and should welcome total surveillance, to protect them from other malicious and criminal people. Right? As if the only reason we desire privacy is to hide our guilt from others and keep guilty secrets. As if that were the only reason we put up curtains in our homes, and closed our doors, and had passwords for our banking and social media sites. As if we had never ever had anything to fear from other people having access to our personal data and private lives. As if there were no way for unauthorized people to take advantage of the situation and hack authorized users to access our private details. As if no one in government would ever dream of abusing their power. As if you could trust the security measures of the authorities, and every authority who is, after all, merely another human being. Not some perfect angel from another dimension. So at what point will you decide enough is enough? Probably after it is too late to do anything about changing anything. By the time everyone becomes aware of what they have lost, it will be too late to retrieve it, without violence and massive loss of life and suffering. The war of all against all. With most of those on the side of the authorities believing they are on the side of good. Because they have no idea about the reality of the situation. And who they are working for. And what they are working for. A one-world tyrannical cult of Judah Jew world order. Yes, it happens to be mostly Jews who are our adversary in this battle for freedom and liberty. They have been brainwashed from birth, for over 3,000 years, over 200 generations, and only the faithful have been pre-selected and groomed and handled and supported into the positions of power, where a few people have their hands on the levers of power and the steering wheel of policy. As the captains of the ships of state and the massive global corporations and banking conglomerates, and government organizations, and the Jew.N itself. As clearly demonstrated in the total destruction of Libya, in the most recent and blatant war crime against humanity, and expression of the cult of Judah's modus operandi and intentions, to date. Just remember, even if you believe that good people run your government and corporations today, imagine how the power you are handing over to them could be abused by bad people, tomorrow. Of course, those of us who are awake realize that no genuinely good person could survive for long in the current system, in either the private or public sectors. Nor in the alternative media. Those people who succeed today do so because they are defined by the cult of Judah as assets. Either knowingly working hand in hand with the cult of Judah, or unwittingly serving the interests of the cult of Judah, by performing some role beneficial or necessary to the cult of Judah's strategy.